in a small publication by Cantor Brown Jr. that there was a maroon community, what he at that time referred to as escaped slave community on the Manatee River. And Vicky Oldham asked a simple question: can we find it? And it was small scale, but we were fairly successful. And by the time we got to 2014, right, 10 years of efforts, so overnight success in a decade, we were able to say, yes, we found some traces. And then I realized that there was an anniversary coming up. And I'll say, I like anniversaries. I like the ritual of remembering things.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of it just grows out of my Judaism, that Judaism is a religion of remembrance. And we remember things even if the dominant group doesn't remember them. We want to kind of highlight them. And in doing the history, it's really complicated. I'll try to be really brief. Florida, of course, was Spanish from 1513 when Ponce de Leon arrived. St. Augustine became its biggest city, where it still stands. And back in 1693, King Charles II issued a proclamation that anyone of African heritage who escaped slavery in the Anglo colonies and agreed to his rule and accepted Catholicism could live as free people in Spanish Florida. And as I say in all my public presentations, no one wants to be a slave. And so people came. They came and they came, and the result was Fort Muzay, which is now a state historical park. And that made Florida into a haven from slavery. And people escaped what's now Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama to Florida. We kind of fast forward to the early 19th century. And there are now generations of free Blacks living in Florida. And in the chaos of the War of 1812, the Napoleonic Wars, some British soldiers, Edward Nichols is the one most credited, helped build a fort on Prospect Bluff on the Apalachicola River. And what the Americans call, and please excuse the language, the Negro Fort, becomes a citadel of liberty. And hundreds of free Blacks, people who are self-emancipated from slavery, and Native Americans come to this fort, which gets known as the British Fort. And there you can see the British flag. And after Andrew Jackson wins the Battle of New Orleans, after the war's over, as we all know, he saw this place as a threat to the slave regime. And again, as I always say in the public presentations, he was right, that all these hundreds of people escaped enslavement to live here. The British supplied them. And as you can see from this reconstruction, and this follows what we know archaeologically as well as archivally, it was big. It was scary. The US government military records are clear. This was a large scale fort built by British engineers, or organized by British engineers, to be really an incredible structure. And from the US military records, in July of 1816, Andrew Jackson ordered an attack. And US Navy ships went into Spanish territory, went up the Apalachicola River. And we have the diary from the naval officer. It lays it out. And he gets within sight of the fort. He sees the British flag and the red flag of violence. And this is from the US military records from that naval officer. There's a lucky shot. And a cannon hits the magazine and blows up the fort. That's July 27th.
In a magazine, for people who don't know, what is a magazine?
Oh, that's where you put gunpowder.
So okay, guys. So not like for what
not
we think
reading,
of today
no.
for a magazine, right? Yeah.
That's a good point. Yes, I sometimes get lost in this terminology, right? Remember I said I always need a translator?
Right.
And there's the magazine itself. And
Gotcha.
Again, we know this from the archival record. There's a map of it. There's some gunpowder and barrels that the British gave. And the US Navy reports 300 were killed instantaneously, a couple hundred captured, and others escaped.